Hey, this is Joy Britton, and I'm working with the Haldeman Community Oral History Project. It's February 27th, 2013, and we are at the Haldeman Community Center. And today I'm talking with Mr. Lansford May and his brother, Mr. Vernon May. And I think I'm going to start out by I'll ask Lansford first. Can you tell me a little bit about your family and your family's history in Haldeman? Were they originally from here? Did they come here from somewhere else?
Yeah, my granddad came down from Floyd County, up to Prestonburg. I mean, it was Prestonburg, there was a county seat there, in a place called Albuquerque in Floyd County, Kentucky. He came here. And my dad was up there with an uncle and a brother in Floyd County. And so down here, down the road here, you're on 174, down here where Ivan Jennings lives now, all up through there was Maytown. My papa had bought that property through there, and he built houses and rented them out. It was called Maytown. Really, it was a little establishment. And so then the railroad come through. And he, so they had disbanded Maytown. And I don't know where they moved any of the houses or moved.
I think they just tore them all down. They didn't move houses back then.
They didn't move them back then.
So that was before
and so
the
he
brickyards.
and so he sold them a right of way through there, for the railroad.
For the railroad, and that was way before the brickyards were here, because the railroad came in first, right?
Yeah, just so you know.
So where did those people, what did they do for a living? Do you know the people that lived in Maytown? Because that was before the brickyard.
Mostly kin folks.
Most of the kin folks that lived there and have married, so some into the family, you know what I'm saying, and so on, that lived there. And they farmed, carpenters, and carpentry work and things like that.
And then after the railroad came in, did some of those people go to work in the brickyards? Or?
Yeah, in the mines and at the brickyard and so on, right. But that was, and so I had uncles who worked here at the brickyard, too. And of course my dad, 19 and 15, but he had come down from Prestonburg.
From Floyd County. What did he do in Floyd County, or was he just a young man?
He was just a young man. He was 14 when he come to here to home.
And you said it was 19. What year did you say about that was?
1915 when he went to work.
When he went to work
at the brickyard here.
And was he still a teenager, or?
He was
16.
16. Wow.
16.
Did he work in the mines or in the brickyard?
Brickyard.
In the brickyard.
In the brickyard.
Do you know what job he did?
He dressed brick.
Dresser.
After they come out of the keels, they fired these brick in the keels, and they'd come out and they'd stack them out, and they were still hot. And he'd take a trowel and dress like this tabletop, dress them out, And they also put the stamp on it with Haldeman while they were yet kind of soft like, because it was clay, and the Haldeman stamp on it and everything, And my dad had dressed that out, dressed them brick out. And he stayed bent over, he said, all day, over that. And them brick were hot. You'd work it over heat, because when they come out of the furnace, And he started out at 65 cents a day, and a day was 10 hours. 10 hours, that wasn't an 8-hour day. 10 hours we called a day, and it was 65 cents a day.
So do you know what time? Did he start early in the morning?
Started about 6 o'clock in the morning.
Went to late afternoon.
Yeah, about 2. Well, it's 4. If it was 10 hours, Yeah.
So when he was working there was back when Mr. Haldeman still owned the brickyards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
He was a founder of this old town.
And so he said, hot job, he's over these bricks, but did he like it otherwise?
Oh yeah, he liked his job. And then he'd come home, and they was 15 of us kids, 17 counting mom and dad and family. And he come
boys, 3 girls.
When he come home in the evening, then we had a little old farm, and he would plow and so on, and to put the corn out and the crops in the garden and so on, and plus work at the brickyard too.
Wow.
And so, and he'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get ready to come to work at 6 o'clock, because he rode a mule for work. Lived about a mile and a half, 2 mile away, mile and a half, 2 miles.
He'd ride that mule in, and then you said you raised...
He'd bring the oats with him to feed it, and they called him Sal Mule.
Sal Mule.
Sal Mule's what they called him. It was his nickname, and because he went out to work one morning. Dad was always trading mules, I guess, and so he went out, and he didn't call it a mare mule or horse mule. They said, "What kind of mule is that, Henry?" And he said, "That's a sow mule." I mean, it was a mare mule. Female. And so they named him Sow Mule. He went, he was just a kid, at that time. And so anyway, that stuck with him, but they finally come down to just Mule May. Mule May. I mean, that's what the superintendent and all of them called him, Mule. If they wanted something done, hey, Mule,
I'll tell you a joke that they got a new superintendent come in one time, and he was need to talk to Dad for something. Anyway, the other superintendent was here, said, you'll have to ask the mule about that. He said, a mule? Said, you got a talking mule here? They said, told him who it was then, said, no, that's his nickname.
So it sounds like he got along well with the managers or...
Oh, yeah, it was all like a family thing, honey, the brickyard was and everything. Even with the foremans and the bosses, Dad called them big wigs.
Yeah.
Then, everybody else did. The foreman and the superintendent, they called them big wigs.
So,
were most of the big wigs from here, or were they from somewhere else?
Most of them were from here.
Yeah.
Most of them were from
but
here.
When he was born, he went out to work the next morning. He told old man Haldeman he had a namesake. He named his son after.
And he said, I'll just finish it. He said, when he gets old enough to wear a suit, I'll buy him a suit of clothes. But he died before I got old enough to move and to wear a suit of clothes.
But do you remember him? I mean,
vaguely have seen him, and we used to come up here to the old company store here, right here, this gym, and out here.
Right here, like where the cars.
Where the cars are parked.
Where the cars are parked, and come up there, and like we said, we talked about the old tram track up here where they haul the clay in, and they'd come down. Oh, I love to come. We'd come in a wagon. Dad didn't have a car. We'd come around in a wagon, and I'd love to come here to see them little tram cars do their thing. They'd come down, they'd dump that, and then go back with that clay, and that was something to me. I just couldn't fascinate me how they did that, with them cables and them little cars like that. And I can say this and still see it today. Come in that store, big old store, had a basement in it. And I can still see this, sis. Top of this store all the way around the Christmas time was lined up with little red wagons, flowers. And I'd want one of them. But we were poor people, 15 kids, And Dad couldn't buy us a wagon. But I longed for one of them. Dad hit me with, oh son, we don't have the money to do that, you know. And I was scared to death. I forget the butcher's name because he cut the meat and he got you any way you wanted or anything.
In the company store.
In the company store, had a butcher down there in the basement. And he had a big table, you know, block, you know, where he just cut you anything you wanted, you know, and meat-wise. And I'm scared to death of it. Because I could see him with this big old knife, you know. They call him Butch. But Lloyd and some of them might know what his name was, but I can't remember his name. But as a kid, you know, a 5-year-old kid or something, you know, it was, I'd never seen nothing like that.
Did you buy stuff more? Because I understand there were stores that were independent stores, and then there was a company store. Did you buy most of your stuff in the company store?
Most of it was bought.
Most of it was charged to. They would hold it out of their paycheck.
Yeah.
You had to charge a
Company store.
So that made it hard. You didn't get much of a paycheck when you got
No,
it.
because you
Had groceries.
Groceries.
But we
Yeah,
mostly raised all our food then.
like
on
the meat and
farm.
stuff, and chickens, and for meat and for eggs,
Raised hogs. And
hogs and kill hogs and
And
beef and
beef.
so on, you know,
I
like
beat
that.
beef
So we
till I
didn't have
get
to buy
so
much.
tired of it. Daddy killed a beef and then he wanted it 3 times a day. That beef. We got to eat this up, it was full.
Did you put up the beef? Did you can any of the meat or cure it? I mean, with
Cure
the hogs,
it.
I guess.
Mhm.
And they a lot of times fry sausage and can
Can
it
it.
up
Yeah,
in jars.
yeah.
I remember in the old can in half-gallon jars, and then they put it all in there, and then Mom would turn it upside down. And when it got cold, all that lard from that sausage would be on top. Wouldn't be mixed in with,
Yeah.
because all the grease would go
They
bottom of it, which was the top, and then when you turned it back up, it was, you know, already got hard.
Cool.
But we, excuse me.
Well, he's getting control of himself. They had a store in 1944. I started high school here, and the grocery store, company grocery store, right out there. And Dad had told them to let me anybody could just go up, and they wouldn't unless they got permission from parents to charge stuff for them. So Dad had told them, you know, to
That you
let
your
me
hand.
have stuff. And I'd go over every day and get me a ham sandwich or bologna, mostly bologna sandwich, and a L8.
They had L8 then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Got
now I
28.
can't stand the stuff.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
don't like it. But I did then. Oh, I love that stuff.
And that was when you were in high school.
Yeah, I'm 1944. And then later on, they moved around here where that church house is now. They had a post office there in that building and the company store, big brick building.
And
I remember going with Mom there. We'd walk from where a lot of times instead of coming in a wagon when they was going to get a big load of groceries. When a lot of times the other neighbors would send an order, and you'd go back with a big old wagon load of groceries. Anyway, they had back then it's the first time I ever saw that, and it's still amazing to think about it. You go back there in one department, part of the store, and get something. They'd write it down on this little tab and put it in this little thing and hit it, go up the wall, cross there, and go to the main cash register over there.
Think about that.
And different sections in that store, and then when you got over there, they would all be there, all them bills from each place, and they would add it up and
Our pushed it.
put it on Dad's bill.
And what kinds of things did you
Well,
buy?
see, he brought a lot of this knowledge and stuff in, over in Holloman, things like that, from Pennsylvania. I mean, you think a big city like Philadelphia or somewhere, you know, and so on like that we'd never seen, you know. And like I was talking about the tram cars coming in, it's just how in the world they do that, you know, to make that do that. But he was talking about food and how we killed our own, and I got choked up there a little bit about never went to bed hungry.
15 kids and didn't get paid very well.
Never did go to bed hungry. God took care of the situation some way, somehow. A way was made. And then if somebody got real sick and had to have doctor care, Dad always managed to have a cow to sell or a calf or something to pay the doctor bill, you know, and so on like that.
And there was like a clinic, and then I heard that there was a lady that would come down and say words or something that was kind of a different kind of doctrine.
Lacey Kegley.
Lacey Kegley?
Lacey Kegley.
She was a registered nurse.
And
They had a little white building out there they called the hospital. She worked for the company. Company paid her.
Paid her.
And you could
She's
go
a nurse.
there and she would, well, she didn't only take the people that worked at the brick plant and mines, she would doctor anybody.
That walked in.
And then me and him was out there talking a while ago. I was telling Don them about it. When he was a little boy, every time he got out in rainy weather on new plowed ground barefoot or anything, he'd take the crew about choked to death. And I was telling about one time Dad was plowing potatoes out of the ground, and we was picking them up, and he was out there, just a little teeny fella, walking, running around in that plowed ground. It was late in the fall, you know, when you dig the potatoes. And that evening he took the crew. And Dad and Mom took him to, Dad had a car then, and he took him to Moorhead to old Dr. Jared. And Dr. Jared just gave him some medicine and told him what kind of spray to get at the drugstore, and spray stove, and him about choked to death. Anyway, they started back home with him, and instead of coming on home, they come up here to see Lacey Kegley, the nurse. And she said, Lord of mercy, what does Dr. Jared think? His kids are smothering to death. You could hear him breathing forever. Well, all us kids, before they left with him, had run to the barn because we thought he was dying, you know, smothering to death. Anyway, she took and got a pan, put hot water in it, and she poured, Mom told me this, she put some kind of medicine in that water, and put a towel over his head and hung him over that and let that breathe him. And in a little bit he thawed up, and so Lacey looked at it and said, well, he'll never have croup no more. He's thawed the croup knot up that was in his throat. And he's, 78, and he's never had it
79
since.
birthday July.
Never had it since.
And I take it, I call it a baby ass from 83 Miller a day. That's it. No high blood.
He must have been about 4 or 5 years old then.
You were real little. And which of you is the older brother?
I'm older than him.
You're older.
I'll be 84 in
I say old, I'm oldest.
He's 70, you're 78.
78.
Wow.
Then we got a brother that's living. He's 85.
And then we got 3 older brothers dead.
And when your mom had babies, did they go get the nurse or just neighbors help out?
Neighbor delivered.
Except doctor delivered me, old Doc Fortune. He doctored here at Soldier, just across the hill right here. And that's where he was doctoring in. And then he went to Olive Hill and doctored old Doc Fortune. delivered me and my oldest sisters next to me.
They come to the house.
They come to the house and deliver.
But nobody else. But none of the rest of you were
From on back, it was just a midwife. Well, down through the years, though, there was midwives that come too.
Yeah.
For different.
I didn't wait till the doctor, midwife, to get there. Dad went after, Mom said, and he had to ride a mule to go get it. Anyway, neighbor woman was there, you know, when the one mother was going to have a baby, the neighbors all came in and bought water. And I don't know why they did, but they did. Anyway,
good.
Neighbor woman delivered me, and she always claimed me. The whole family claimed me for their boy. After that, when I was about 10 years old, her son, he was oldest brother, I guess he was. Anyway, or maybe older. He took me when I was 10 years old, and another one of my brothers, and Dad and my oldest brother, and him and his sister. They got a cab and took us to Renfro Valley, you know, Renfro Valley.
Any cab?
Yeah, $4 a piece what it cost us in the cab, but I didn't pay. Neighbors paid my way because they claimed me. And that, on the way back, we stopped at this restaurant. Well, they sold whiskey in there too, and I ate my first hot dog.
Your first hot dog? Never had that before. And what did you go down to music in Renfro Valley?
Yeah, that's where they had opened up in '39 in October. And we went down in March. Then they closed it about Christmas and don't open back up till March. And we went down in March.
Do you remember who you saw, who you heard?
Saw little Jimmy Dickens. He just been there. He's hadn't been there very long at Renfro Valley. I remember him, the Coon Creek Girls.
And you got seen in Nashville this year, not too long ago.
Oh, yeah. Mightn't heard every time I go. I was out in Nashville this past weekend, but he
ran into him down at the dollar store, didn't you?
Yeah, the boot store. But anyway, he was under the weather this weekend. He wasn't there. They said they watch out for him and won't let him. He wants to come every weekend, see him. He's dedicated to it, little Jimmy is. Anyway, he was kind of had a cold, and they didn't want him out. Wouldn't let him come.
Well, did people in your family play? Do you play instruments?
I don't, but might not have one. The boys played and one the girls. Guitars.
Guitars.
Banjo. My dad played the banjo guitar.